There's this nice saying in Buddhism that a bird needs two wings, wisdom and compassion. So you could say that all the Buddhist teachings, they're all taught in a very kind of orderly way, and all the first stages of practice are the wisdom wing. It's all the nuts and bolts of Buddha's view about the mind, which they deal with in great depth in the literature. We're just discussing it generally here, I'll go into a bit more detail. And also all the business about karma, which is this huge, it's a world view actually. I mean, I joke and I say karma and reincarnation aren't some things invented by the hippies in the 60s. There's been this Indian philosophical view of the world for thousands of years, just that we didn't know about it in our culture. So, then the Buddhist view about the mind, this is a practical issue. It's not religious, it's not moralistic. You shouldn't be angry, you shouldn't be anxious, you're naughty, which is how we tend to feel. We have so much guilt and self-hate, It's a practical thing. And the wisdom wing is all about how to, for your sake, and even that seems a bit nerve-wracking to us. If we think of spiritual, we always think, that's compassion, love, other people. It seems selfish to do it for your sake. But it's practical. I mean, if you eat well because you don't want to be sick, no one accuses you of being selfish. I mean, you think it's common sense. Well, it's the same here. Work on your own mind, Buddha says. You've no idea how much potential you've got to be content and fulfilled while in the face of dramas and indeed when things go well. It's up to us, So the fundamental point is it's for our own benefit. So the whole view in Buddhism is that whatever goes on in our mind, as I said before, every millisecond, that's the main player in our lives, not the outside. It's our view of the outside. It's our interpretation of the outside. It's what goes on in here that's the main source. And so then that's why the Buddhist view has this very clear understanding of what goes on in here and how we need to learn to become familiar with it so we can do the job of unpacking and unraveling, the contents of our own mind. I mean, if we don't know our own mind, who the hell does, And you don't need to look into a brain to know your mind. I mean, be a neuroscientist. It's fantastic. But we all know you can change a thought without... I know I've got a left brain and a right one. Don't ask me what it means. But I know I can change my thoughts. That's a fact, And it's for my benefit. In other words, the simple way that Buddha's talking... In Buddhist psychology, there's this really clear way of presenting all these thousands of states of mind that we all know so well. And they divide them into the neurotic, deluded, negative, ego-based ones. And we all know them. Don't feel guilty about it. It's just the way they talk. That are extreme and disturbing and distressing. Anger, depression, anxiety. And they unpack these very clearly. Then you've got the positive ones, compassion, love, generosity. And all he's saying is, well, the first lot make you miserable and cause you to make other people miserable. Look at the world. And the second lot make you happy and they make you but make other people happy. It's sort of so simple in a way, it's almost embarrassing, And they make this massive distinction between them. And of course, the reason is because Buddha has found that we can radically reconfigure and lessen the nonsense. We're not set in stone. We are not set in stone. And we can learn to change. That's the essential point Buddha's making. And it's a practical issue for your own benefit. Then when you put yourself together, even to some degree, become a little bit less neurotic, a little bit more courageous in the face of dramas, then guess what? You open your eyes and you realise we're all in the same boat. And now you can help others. That's the compassion wing, So it's a very practical approach, Oh, where's my glasses? I can see the time. So, okay, I think you should ask me some questions now. If you'd like to ask me some questions. We'll just open up the conversation, see where it goes. I'm happy to talk about anything. Does it make sense what I'm saying? I didn't talk too fast, did I? No, that's right. I'm in Australia, you understand me. So any questions, people? Any old question? What, say it again. Of karma? 9 stages. What's the 9 stages of karma? I don't know about that. It's maybe the different Buddhist traditions talk in different ways. What, darling? Is there another microphone? Really good if I can hear. Then I think they're recording it too. It helps. Yes, say it again.
Yeah, it's just 9 karma binding.
Oh, okay, sure. I get you now. I see.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's much benefit in going through. It's a bit intellectual for most of us, and it wouldn't get us very excited. But
No.
it's what the gentleman is talking about is in the Buddhist tradition. This is coming from these Indians before the Buddha. This technique they cultivated, that's known broadly as single-pointed concentration. This extraordinarily sophisticated discipline skill, as I'm saying, to go beyond the grosser level so that you really subdue your mind in a crystal clear, much more subtle, focused way. So then you're really capable of working really easily with what goes on in your mind, you know. And it's a very this practical skill. And it's described in terms of 9 stages of cultivation. But there's no benefit in going through those. They just sound boring. Okay? Won't be exciting at all, but there you go. Who else? Yes. Yep. Go. A little bit closer to the mic. I can't quite hear. Is that microphone on? It doesn't sound like it. Go, sweetheart. There we go. Yes, that's it. I can hear you now.
It's really working.
Go.
Where does it start?
Okay,
So-
good. I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. I know it sounds all very exciting, but yeah, like where to start?
Yeah.
Precisely. I agree. Well, I'm going to disappoint you when I tell you, in the Buddhism way, the sort of very gradual way of presenting practice. The sort of different, one way of Tibetans have packaged all the Buddha's teachings, and they have, you know, and they describe it in terms of 3 stages of development. There's something like this. And the first level, I like to call it like junior school. The next one is like high school, and what I've been talking about is high school. So you've got to go to junior school first. And this sounds so boring, you'll get almost annoyed with me. But let's look at it, because it's actually quite profound. The first level of practice is, Buddha's view is, given that what goes on in here is the source of all the dramas, and that finally we've got to get to do the work there. But the first level of practice we have to start working with, the first level of our energy that we have to start using discipline with is, guess what? Our body and our speech, our behaviour. So we might not go around probably raping and killing too many people. Am I right here? Probably not. But guess what? We're all very good with our words. Now, this might sound silly, but let me just, you'll see my point. We speak. You know, if you're feeling a bit distressed, isn't it, inside, something, let's say you're at work, something horrible happens, and that horrible colleague, and you can't stand the sight of him, you know, and you're driving the car home, and you've got a hubby at the other end. Well, the whole conversation in your head, isn't it? You just can't wait to burst in the front door or whatever and start blasting on about this person, especially if you're really stressed. The tears will come and we will pour out our heart. Now, it is good to talk to people. We need good friends or good therapists. Believe me, we need people to talk to help us sort out the mess. But I think part of our problem is we vomit everything out because we don't know how to work with it internally. We don't know how to hold our stuff. It's like a little kid, you know. If I was fighting with my sister Janet, and then my eyes are crooked, you know, she called me cockeye, and I just completely collapse in hysterical and tears every time. She got me every time, you know. So I would make a beeline, wouldn't I, for Mummy, you know. Mummy, Janet, call me cockeye, crying and crying, you know, because you can't contain your own emotions. I mean, we sort of know this. So you can't. So it's hard to work on your mind if you vomit everything out your mouth first. So you've got to learn to control the mouth first, which means you're still using your mental discipline to. And I don't mean to suffocate. This is a big problem here. This easily could be. We've got 2 modes in our life, I would think. One is to vomit everything out, which some of us have the habit to do, and then the other one is we suppress. Isn't it? But this third mode, which is the high school, is learning to work on your own mind. But we need to harness the energy of our body and speech. And this is where it sounds like religion. Buddha's just like Jesus. He says, don't kill, don't lie, don't jump on too many partners, or don't jump on the wrong partner, don't steal, don't badmouth people. We know this advice. But my feeling is your grandmother gives you the same advice. A good communist mother would give you the same advice. So the point is to see the reason for it. So that, you know, This is an interesting point, by the way. I've got a Jesuit priest friend. I was a good Catholic. I mean, I was a naughty Catholic, but a good Catholic. I loved God. I was in love with God, in love with Our Lady and the saints. I went to Mass every day. I wanted to be a nun like St. Therese of Lisieux when I was 12, begging my mother to let me be a nun. I cried, of course, when she said no. And then 20 years later, she cried when I became a Buddhist nun, you know. And then I said, oh, Mummy, it's all the same. Well, if it's all the same, why did you change? I couldn't answer that question. Anyway, the point is, you know, the point is I forgot now. The first level of practice, okay, my Jesuit priest friend, right. This is an interesting incidental point. I asked him, I said, by definition, what is a sin? In other words, what is immorality? What is a sin? He said, by definition, it's doing what God said not to do. Now, I don't criticize that. I have great respect for anybody who has faith in God, you know. I really sincerely say that. It's just not the Buddha's view, that's all. So we talk about God's law, and that's reasonable if you have the view of a creator who runs the world, then of course you must do his wishes. It's completely logical. And of course he will punish you if you don't and will reward you if you do. So, but the thing is, what I'm getting to here is that's our model of morality. In our mother's household, it's exactly the same. Mummy says, don't do that, and I know the reason is because she says so. So I think we have this kind of dualistic view, I'd suggest, of morality, whereas the Buddha's view is he exhorts us not to kill, lie, steal, this, that. He says it's for our own sake. Because if I'm driven by anger or driven by craving, you know, an uncontrolled mind, of course my body and speech, which are like the servants of my mind, they're going to do their trip. And this is a disaster for me and a disaster for everybody else. So the first level of practice, you know, is to maybe observe what our habits are. Let's say our speech is a big one, I think. And I'm not trying to say be Pollyanna. Don't misunderstand me. I'll give an example. My family, there's 7 of us siblings, right? And we're all very volatile, like me, except my brother. He's the 7th in the family. He's kind of laid back, you know. But all the 6 girls were all like busy and speedy and all bossy, like me. So anyway, the point is, it was a very chaotic family. They had children so quickly we ran out of beds, you know, and ran out of money too, I think. So, my mummy sent us to the best Catholic convent, and I always joke that she probably still owes the bills 60 years later, you know. Anyway, the point is, it was chaotic in the family, and we would fight. People do in families, and we all grow up and we'd meet at Christmas and we'd fight again. So somehow, we all stayed pretty close, just as well, because families have terrible breakups, don't they? It's so sad. But what's interesting, and I'm getting it to this point, the last 20 years, there's been this kind of unspoken agreement between us that we never speak bad words about each other to each other behind our backs. And people in families, we just love to do that, you know. And it creates the most intense, awful pain, you know. And then the second one is when we're together, we never talk about things we don't agree with. So we end up having a really good time, and we're really harmonious, we rejoice in each other's good qualities. I mean, not one of them likes Buddhism or religion, can't bear it, you know. We're all ex-Catholics. So somehow it really is, what I'm getting at is, it causes the harmony in the group, and it causes you to feel more peaceful. And this is the point I'm getting at. So the first step to becoming less neurotic is not to vomit out everything we feel. And I don't mean suppress. Find a person to talk to. Have a good therapist, I beg you. Find one person you really trust, whom you can pour your heart out to. And the reason isn't just to make yourself more angry, is to sort out your feelings. This is so intelligent. But I think we're so used to being open and sharing everything, you know. It ends up being a nightmare. So I really think this is a profound practice. Where are you? Can you hear what I'm saying? This is not kidding, actually. And that means well, probably in Buddhist terms, that means having some kind of disciplined practice every day. And this is also, it's like working on your mind, but this is also part of it. So even if you start with 5 minutes in the morning, this is as well as what I just said, 5 minutes before everything else starts to happen. And that itself is what takes discipline. We all know you decide to go to yoga, you give up after a month. You decide to go to the gym, you give up. You go on a diet, we give up. We're not very disciplined, you know. We get all excited in the beginning, then we give up. And so that's part of the problem. So the point is, even 5 minutes in the morning to start your day, you have a little chair that's your little spot, like your little place, and we very rarely have that, you know. And we don't have much real estate. We squeeze in and share space with everybody else. So even to have your own little spot, And you'd just, let's say settle down, have your body comfortable, you'd close your eyes, and I'll maybe discuss, I'll just tell you now what the technique is. It's very simple. You'd sit there, and what you're going to do, what this concentration technique is, by the way, it's not a relaxation technique. It's a very specific one. The job is to focus the mind. It's to pay attention with very strong discipline. Relax is not like that. So relax, please relax. We all need relaxing. Yoga's got great relaxation techniques. But this particular technique is to learn to focus the mind, which is to keep it sharp, you understand? So for 5 minutes, or even 3, I promise, what you would do, you'd get settled, you'd close your eyes, you'd locate, you'd need to focus on something. You've got to anchor your mind to something. So a practical thing is like the breath at your nostrils. So you'd take a couple of breaths and you'd locate that sensation. And then all you would do for 3 minutes, 4 minutes, you make a strong determination. You talk to yourself, I'm going to pay attention to that sensation. So you watch the breath going out. You focus on the breath coming in. You focus on the breath going out. You focus on the breath coming in. I mean, it's beyond boring. But that's the exercise. And what are you doing? You see, what you're doing is it's like you're training yourself to not follow every ridiculous thought. So normally we either don't notice our thoughts, or if we're so overwhelmed by our thoughts, we can't stop being involved in them. You understand, having all these conversations. So the thing is, though, a big misconception is to think that all the thoughts will go away. That's a complete joke. The second misconception is you'll feel better. Don't hold your breath. The third misconception is it's a relaxation technique. It's not. But it's practical and it's training. And like any training, it doesn't happen overnight. But so the point is this. What you're learning to do is, like I said, pay attention just to the breath. So then your thoughts are going to go crazy and you're going to think you're getting worse. In fact, in the meditation techniques that the gentleman mentioned, in the texts where they describe these 9 stages of cultivating this concentration, they say one of the signs of success at the first of the 9 stages is you think you're getting worse. So it's a bit like going to the gym for the first time. You come home with muscles you didn't know you had. You've got pain you can't believe, and this is my point now, but you know it's a good pain because you're engaged in the process now. So that's what's happened here. Normally at night, let's say, and you can't go to sleep. We can't believe the thoughts, can we? We can't believe the chaos, right? That happens, isn't it? You just cannot go to sleep. You think you go crazy. We can't believe so many thoughts. Well, honeys, they're happening all the time. It's just we don't pay attention. There you are in the middle of the night with your eyes closed. Of course you can hear them loud and clear like this mad person in there. But that's the mad person's in there all the time. It's just that you're busy driving and dealing with the kids and the hubby, So the point is, they're all there, these thoughts. But you're learning to step out of them in a way. You're going to hear them all crazy. Like this whole room, if we all erupted into conversations and you want to know what every person's saying, that's a bit like your head. But you decide, you don't tell the people to shut up, you don't tell the thoughts to be quiet, you just decide you're going to focus on that one light on the wall. And then so you're exercising, you're developing this strength of focus so that then when you do get some focus, the noise will appear less because you're focused on something. So you're growing this ability to focus your mind, which means stop being like a little bird that races from pillar to post between every thought, which is how we spend our lives unconsciously. So from that benefit comes in the day, you bring to bear in your day. So there you are normally driving the car. You get up in the morning, you feel all stressed, but you don't know why because you're not dealing with it. You're getting breakfast and dealing with all the jobs. And then you're in the car, you're feeling really tense, and then a bloke comes and runs in front of you and you lose the plot. Whereas here, when you start to develop this skill, and it takes time, don't think you're going to get great at it. It's training, because you're stepping out of your head for 3 minutes, you hear all the crazy thoughts, and that actually is good, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But then when you're driving, you're not only focused on the traffic, you're noticing your thoughts. You're aware of what's going on, and you're sort of talking to yourself. You know the dangers that are going to come at work. You've got to have a meeting with that person, and you're talking yourself through it. You're conscious. So you know the problems, and so you're becoming like your own friend. talking to yourself, being your own therapist. I'm really not kidding. It's an ordinary, practical kind of thing. This is the beginning stages of becoming familiar with the workings of your own mind. It's nothing mystical, I promise you. Are we communicating? But it's slowly, slowly, darling. And so the point is this, like with the gym, you know, you see the pictures of the people who've lost all those 40 kilos and they look trim and gorgeous. So you have that fantasy in your mind. Then you come home after the first day and you look in the mirror and you feel terrible and you look the same. So of course you don't give up immediately because you know it's going to take time. And you've got to have discipline and you've got to go every day and you've got to work hard. It's the same here but probably harder. So when we're intelligent about it and don't have fantasies, then it just gradually become more familiar with what's going on in your head. And then you slowly learn to become more intelligent with working with it. And that's what takes time. Do you understand? That's the beginning process. And it takes time. It just takes time. Do you understand? That's the start.